we can also, in a particular space, in a particular area, be paying attention to what God is doing. And for us, from the early days of Canopy that I've been a part of, we've always kind of identified this neighborhood, Westside Costa Mesa, as the place where we want to do that. We want to be really attentive to what God is doing in this place at this time. And for that reason, we've had this kind of sense of how do we, for the sake of the kingdom of God, make a difference in this community, in this neighborhood. Like make this a church for the neighborhood, where people, whether or not they've ever come here to attend a service, know that this is a place where people pray, where people will help, where they can be fed, literally. I mean, that's something that's been a big part of our story, is how can we make this a place of celebration, a place of joy, a place of help and empowerment, a place of relationship. These are all kind of core values. And for me, this has been a really important part of my journey into Canopy. When I was thinking about planting a church and that kind of converged with the Canopy story, this was a non-negotiable for me. I've been wrestling with the way church tends to happen in this particular part of the world, because I grew up in a small kind of local context in northwest Montana, and it's very country up there, and there still kind of operates on this to some degree on this parish model, right, where you have a neighborhood and a church in a neighborhood, and the church in the neighborhood is the church for the neighborhood, and most of the people who go there are from the neighborhood, and the church becomes kind of the center of community life, where you have, you know, bingo nights, and you have potlucks, and you have weddings, and some of them, even the old enough ones, have like a cemetery outside, right? Because that's where you're buried at the end of your life. So it's like, I was christened in this church, and I was buried in this church, and everything else happens around this church. And I think we've gotten away from that in some interesting ways, and for some reasons, but a lot of times now I see, and I understand why, I get it, but I'll see churches in like warehouse districts with no neighbors, you know? And these big, beautiful buildings that are empty 6 out of 7 days of the week, or occupied solely by Christians for most of the time. And I understand why, and I'm not here to judge any of that, but I got this sense when I was praying about planting a church and what God was putting on my family's heart and on the people who are kind of coming around us, that like, what would it look like to reclaim that parish model, you know, that kind of life alongside model, where we're a church in a neighborhood, and the life of the neighborhood is happening around the church, and this is just a place where people know it's available to them. I want people to come and experience the church, but I would love it someday if somebody said, oh, that's Canopy, that's my church, who's never actually come here. You know, it's like, it's the church in the neighborhood. I want them to come, don't get me wrong. But you understand what I'm saying? Like a church that's known for being here for the community. And with that in mind, something we decided to do a couple years back was to plant a nonprofit called Reunion HQ that would serve as our missional branch in this neighborhood. Now, people might be asking, why would you plant a separate nonprofit? Don't you already have a nonprofit? Yes, Canopy is a nonprofit organization. Yes, we can do all of this through Canopy, but a while back I was kind of praying about community development and how you actually make a difference in a community. And I ran across this, if anybody wants it, I'll send it to him, but I ran across this podcast by Tim Keller, who recently passed away, who is brilliant at this. His church, Redeemer in Manhattan, is one of the best to really understand their context and do ministry in an urban context. And he was talking about how justice tends to work in the church. And he said this interesting thing. He said, justice involves 3 pieces. It involves relief, recovery, and reform. Okay, so relief is, let's picture it in terms of a natural disaster. Relief is a hurricane blew through, people show up and they just clear out debris and rescue people from the debris, right? That's relief. Recovery is houses need to be rebuilt, kind of foundations need to be relaid, people have to get their lives back. Reform is you build storm walls so this doesn't happen again, right? Or whatever the metaphor is. You like create a structure that kind of negates the systems. And we could say the same thing about natural disasters, or about poverty, or about immigration, or all sorts of different things, right? I mean, whatever the issue is, we could say there's relief. It's helping people in immediate urgency. There's recovery, which is helping people get back on their feet. And then there's reform, which is addressing the systems that caused this in the first place. And Keller said in that, he said something really interesting. He said, you know, the church proper is only really good at relief. And he said, often that involves writing a check and sending people on short-term trips, right? And I have been a missions pastor in different organizations over the years, and I feel that deeply, and it's so frustrating. And he said, I'll tell you why. This is why the church is only good at relief. And anybody who's got like a missional or justice heart gets really irritated at the church because of this. He says, because the church is not a missions organization. It's not a nonprofit. It's a worshiping community. And in the life of the church, a whole bunch of other stuff happens as well. You have kids ministries, and you have life groups or tables, and you have worship, you have Sunday mornings, you have all of these other things happening. And he said, let me tell you what, those things are all black holes of need that can never be satisfied. There's always a need in those different areas. I mean, Sunday mornings in and of themselves in a lot of churches are taking so much time and attention and resource that almost every mission pastor I've ever met feels like they're kind of begging for scraps. Why? Because mission is the only thing that kind of costs the church and you don't see any influx, right? Everything else, if you have good, this is the way he was describing it. You don't have to agree with his rationale, but basically he was describing it as like, mission is specifically output into context where you might not see any direct investment back into the church. Now we know that in a heavenly context, there's all sorts of investments being made. But on a day in and day out basis, you're not seeing people come into the church from it often. You're not seeing growth of any kind. You're seeing simply giving away. And so he said, it becomes really difficult in that context for a church to get good at recovery or reform. And he said, you can do one of two things. You can get really frustrated and try to fight this, and you'll probably lose because those other things are legitimate, part of a worshiping community. Or you can plant nonprofits that are intimately connected to the organization of the church through board members, through vision and values, and then enable them to be what they need to be without the church interfering in the nonprofit. And so the church becomes a way to empower and fuel mission in an organization that is specifically chartered for justice, for relief, recovery, and reform, and is able to fly with its own staff and its own funding and its own board of directors without having to worry about Sunday mornings or life groups or kids ministry, all of which is really good. And you stay connected to it through board members and through funding. And he said his church, Redeemer, has done this multiple times. He said he sat on multiple boards. And again, if you know anything about Keller's ministry, you'll know that the city of Manhattan has been dramatically impacted by that one church. And I thought, look, if there's anybody you're going to listen to, it's going to be Tim Keller. So, okay, let's give it a try. I did a little research into what he'd done, some of the nonprofits they'd started, and I said, let's give it a try. And we discovered that there's some benefits to this. He's right. It does free up resources. It does enable greater conversations. It does enable a different kind of a strategizing that's not happening in the church proper on a regular basis. And we found another side benefit, which is it opens up the door to other partners who would never be a part of something if it was branded, labeled, this is a Canopy Church event. But if we say it's our nonprofit community development organization, then all sorts of people want to get involved. Other churches, private donors, businesses, all sorts of people who, well, we're about community development. We care about this neighborhood too. And so we have launched Reunion HQ as our nonprofit branch. The name Reunion HQ comes from the story of the prodigal son. It's a place where people come to experience the Father's love. And in that, there's really three pieces to this that are vital, right? And we're going to have Jeff come up and talk about these in just a second here. But they're all grounded in the story of the prodigal son. This is not, it is a religious nonprofit. It certainly is, but this is not simply about preaching the gospel with evangelism. We'll do that. We do that for sure. But this is about embodying the gospel, embodying the love of God so that people who are far away can come close. And if you remember in the story of the prodigal son, there are two sons. There's also a son that's gotten so used to his father's presence that he's no longer in awe of the fact that his father is there with him. And I think that's me sometimes. And so the way that son gets to experience the Father's love and have an encounter with him too is through the younger son being restored. Now, whether or not he actually takes that opportunity, we don't know. Jesus ends the story too soon, but he gets a chance to see his father in a new way through the younger son being restored too. So Reunion HQ is for all of us. It's a place for all of us to invest deeply in our community as part of Canopy Church. That's the thing I want to make clear. It's a separate nonprofit, but you guys, this is our mission branch. This is our arm into this neighborhood. This is our effort to be the hands and feet of Jesus in this neighborhood. And so the invitation tonight, as you hear about it, is that this is you. Canopy is a church for builders. Canopy is a church for investors. Canopy is a church for people. It's made up of people, not a building, not a staff, not a nonprofit status. It's made up of people. And this is us. This is us. And this is an opportunity for all of us to play a part. And the last thing I'll say before Jeff comes up and talks about the values and some of the things we're doing now is you're about to hear some of the ways that this is happening now. But Reunion HQ exists to be this very creative space for people in the church to play. So if you have an idea or you have a dream that could empower somebody into one of the values that Jeff's talking about tonight, could bless somebody, could create celebration, could create relationship, We want to talk to you. We really do want Canopy to look like the people who call it home. We want people to invest deeply in this church. And I think often we have a very limited bandwidth of what that looks like. We think that that means kids ministry or setup team or worship team, and it does. Please, we need all of these things. But that's just part of our church. There's a whole different part of our church that's investing into this community, and we need as many people or more people to really take hold of this vision and think creatively and step in with whatever God's asking them to step in with. So we want to tell some of the story of Reunion HQ tonight. To do that, we have Jeff, who is the chair of our board for Reunion HQ. We also have another board member, Adrian, who you saw on Sunday, the missions pastor at Rock Harbor. Rock Harbor's partnering with us in Reunion HQ. And Jeff's going to tell us a little bit more about the values of this organization.
Thanks, Josh. Hey, everybody. So yeah, like Josh said, I mean, we're really excited about the idea of having an independent community development organization that can just kind of focus on, specifically on community outreach. We, as a board, have batted around ideas on kind of what the vision is and what the goal of this organization is for a long time. A lot of board meetings thinking about it, and ultimately we settled on this mission statement, which is Reunion HQ exists to connect the church with the community in order to cultivate relationships, empowerment, and celebration. And those three cornerstones were kind of the areas that we really wanted to focus on. Obviously, relationships with our neighbors are key. Being able to empower people who need to be lifted up, and then obviously there's a joy and celebration component of it. So every program that Reunion has, ideally the hope is that we hit all 3 points with each of our programs, or at the very least one of them. So we have, over the course of the year and a half, 2 years that Reunion has been in existence, we've developed three kind of core programs that we run through Reunion HQ, and each of them is designed to kind of hit one of those key points. So we've got Reunion Youth, we've got the Small Business Institute, and we've got Westside Nights. So you're going to hear a little bit about each of these tonight. I'm going to be representing Reunion Youth because Brandon is currently with the Reunion Youth at Chick-fil-A right now. So, but the idea behind the Reunion Youth program is to have a youth program that is independent of any church. That's something for the community, that's for youth in the community that aren't necessarily, kids of families at a local church, but are just kids in the community that need a safe place to go, that can be engaged, that can build relationships. So Brandon has been shepherding that program for us for a really long time. He is, it's his full-time job. He is an employee of Reunion with his goal of developing a youth program. So with all of these programs, we're actually currently in a building season where we're trying to see what the next step looks like for each of these. For Brandon and the youth group, we've got a great group of kids that do show up here every Thursday to participate and have worship and community together. And what we're looking to build in the next year or so is more inclusivity with the kids in the community. So there's a high school just down the road. There's a couple of elementary schools, and we really want to build out that youth program so that this becomes a place where youth in the community, middle schoolers and high schoolers, feel like they have a safe, comfortable place to come and share and grow and learn from each other. So that program actually was that the first one, Josh? I think that was the first one we did. And we're really excited about how that is going to how that's going to grow over the next year as we start to further engage in the community and press in. We'll talk in a little bit about kind of next steps for Reunion as a whole, but in specifically for youth, that's where we're looking to really step in and engage, is try to find more people from not necessarily any specific church, but just kids in the community to come and join and get to know each other. So that's a little bit about Reunion Youth. And then I'm actually going to jump to Westside Nights so Josh can finish his tacos because he's talking about the next one. Westside Nights is probably the one you're mostly familiar with, and that is our block party out here in the parking lot. And I'd actually like, for this part, I'd like to invite up Adrian, our other board member, to share a little bit. Adrian has kindly agreed to kind of shepherd Westside Nights in the interim while we're looking for an executive director. But Adrian, can you tell us a little bit about Westside Nights and kind of what the vision is and kind of where we're headed with it?
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, Westside Nights is a block party per se in the parking lot of Canopy, and it's really a time just for us to celebrate. That's where our mission statement celebration, but we also really focus on empowerment. So the people, the vendors, they're all local small business owners here. So like Veronica and her husband, like they do the tacos, or Erica, yeah. And it's awesome because it literally, when it started, it was just like connection from someone from the neighborhood was like, hey, I know this family. And then it's just grown into relationship. But it's also been a dual partnership of learning how to come alongside people in the neighborhood and not just say like, hey, we want to host something, but we really want the community to be a part of it. And over the last like 18 months of us hosting Westside Nights, we've just seen the growth of community. It hasn't just been church members coming, but it's really been people even like walking off the street and being like, what's happening in here? And that's really the heart of why Westside Nights has happened. We have shifted. It was every month, but we realized with just the momentum and also the value and the intentionality of really wanting to cultivate relationships and be intentional with the people that are sitting around or coming, we switched it to every other month just so that we could be intentional with the time, really invest in it, and also just allow for more people and more voices to be a part of the planning in that sense. So you'll see the shift that it goes from every other month, and we're kind of being intentional with like October being fall, December kind of with Christmas, and then February is more of like a winter kind of celebration. April we do Kids Day Dia de los Niños, which is a huge thing within the Hispanic culture of really celebrating kids, and so we get to come alongside that. And then we do an end of summer bash, and then we kind of restart all over again in that sense. But that was a lot of feedback from the community as well in that sense. And it's really cool because as we've been doing Westside Nights, we've been seeing the local schools. I think last time we hosted, the superintendent was out here, and that has been something that even within the local schools are like, hey, we want to let, not only the Westside schools know, but other schools know about this engagement. So it's been really cool to see that something small that just started with like, hey, let's just put some tables out on the parking lot and see who shows up, has grown into something, and then just to even see it come out of Small Business Institute too. So, yeah.
So I'm gonna have Adrian stay because I'm gonna kind of take a little bit of an unexpected turn here in a second. But our Small Business Institute is the idea came from a conversation I had with a guy whose church had sort of started a pizza shop in downtown Long Beach. Basically, just this missional space where they had somebody from their community that they sent to culinary school and said, "Hey, we want you to start like making high-end pizzas in downtown Long Beach." And then they hired a bunch of kids from the local high school, and this guy was the chef and the mentor of the whole community. So he had one-on-ones every week with each of his employees. He did basic just life skills, discipleship, and this became this really cool space for their church. And I thought someday I want to be able to do that. That's still on the horizon, you guys. Someday, whether it's a pizza shop or a coffee shop or who knows what it will be, but that's a dream, right? There's a lot of dreams around Union HQ. But in the meantime, it was like, we don't have a space to do this. More on that in just a second. We don't have a space to do this, but what can we do without a space? And then we're having Westside Nights, and our first couple Westside Nights we have different food options. Like one night we had this organization come bring food in. We had another night where we did kind of hot dogs and hamburgers. We had our first night when we hired Veronica and Erica to come and do tacos. And the next Westside Nights we did something else. And I remember, I think it was Veronica came to one of our staff members and was like, "Hey, it's way better when we do it. Can we just take over the food?" And she's not wrong, right? I mean, come on, the best tacos in Costa Mesa, hands down. And that was the best decision we made for Westside Nights, was to say to Veronica and Erica, "You guys run with this. We trust you." And they have made it really what it is. And as we got to know them a little bit more and hear their story, we found that Erica and Veronica both have a dream of owning their own restaurant. And so as we started to kind of hear their stories and what they're dreaming about and what they're excited about for their family, it was like, well, what if we could find a way to help, rather than kind of launch our own restaurant or our own coffee shop or whatever, what if we could help entrepreneurs in this community achieve their dreams? And so we created kind of a pilot program with the Small Business Institute. It's kind of still in process and changing and evolving, but we had some different people from Canopy and from beyond Canopy hosted 6 weeks of just small business training. Just some business owners, some people who had CPA degrees to talk about budgeting, some people who had different backgrounds to talk about different pieces of the process. Ali Garvin, the owner of Need, is involved as one of our coaches, was just talking as a small business owner herself, talking about what it takes. And we had 7 people go through the program. Really, really beautiful program that we're still kind of, like I said, it was kind of a beta test. We're still launching it, but she's going to get mad at me. But Veronica, can you come over here? Would that be okay? I had Adrian stand up here because I don't trust my Spanish to translate. But I'd love, Veronica, is it okay if you share just a little bit about the program? Just about your experience? I'm sorry to ask you to do this without warning you. Is it okay? Aquí está bien. Gracias.
¿Tú quieres que compartas tu experiencia con clases de presentación? Usted me va a traducir así. Okay.
Pues buenas noches a todos y gracias porque les gusta mi comida. Pues en el en el Instituto de Negocios nosotros sí aprendimos mucho con mi esposo porque nosotros íbamos como, ¿cómo le diré? Como al día, no teníamos como cómo hacer un budget, como...
First of all, she said, good evening, and thank you for having us here. I'm glad that you guys like our food. And she was sharing about the Small Business Institute and kind of the beginning process. Her and her husband, during their business, were kind of just like, didn't really have like structure, didn't know how to budget.
Ese también aprendimos cómo hacer crecer nuestro negocio con una tarjeta de crédito que yo no tenía y apliqué para una y ya tengo una.
She said that through the process and through mentorship, she was able to figure out how to, open up a credit card service for their business. And so now she was able to apply for it, and now they have a business credit card to make things a little bit more easier.
También aprendimos que vamos a tener unos coaches que nos van a ayudar a cómo crear tienen muchas ideas buenas también, cómo hacer crecer nuestro negocio como en otros eventos o otras, no sé cómo decirle, como en otra programa se podría decir.
So she said that through the program, they were able to get paired up with a coach that was able to kind of walk them through on like how to set up their business, how to market, how to network, how to be able to kind of get the word out that they actually are a business and know like what are the first steps, what do we have to present, how to like do contracts and all of that stuff.
Ay, pues creo que ya estoy un poquito más cerca de mi sueño.
She said she feels that she is closer to her dreams because of going through the institute. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And I bring her up here, one, just to thank her for the amazing food that she makes on a regular basis for us. Such a gift. And two, just to say she's part of our family. She's part of our church. And we want to help her achieve these dreams because they're good dreams. And she's really good at what she does, like really good at what she does. And so I say that to say, like, let's help together. If you have events that you want to have catered, like, we have the best caterer in town. I mean, honestly, if you want to contact information, I'm happy to pass it on to you. And then beyond that, we're just going to dream about someday there being a shop in this neighborhood that Veronica is running. So more to come on that. The Small Business Institute will have another iteration coming this year. It'll be led in part by the people who've gone through it as well. So it's also something that they can begin to invest back in as they learn and grow as well. So really, really excited about that. Yeah.
So we are, like I said, we're really excited about all of these programs. I mean, there's so much potential with each of them. And one of the things that we're really excited about this year is, so as we were looking at our fiscal year and trying to figure out what our goals for the next 12 months are, one of the things we felt really convicted of is, Adrian and Josh and I are all the board, but we had never really kind of intended on the board being the day-to-day management of the organization. We really want someone that has, vision and interest in kind of this mission and building these things out. So, as you've probably seen on our social media, we've announced a couple of times, we are hiring an executive director this year to lead this organization. And part of that is in recognition of the fact that, youth and the Small Business Institute and even Westside Nights to an extent are in a phase where we're kind of trying to discern what's next for them. So we're really excited about the idea of getting just someone who can make this someone who has a passion for this, that can make this just their full-time focus and really grow this and see what's next. Our goal and our dream is that, kind of at each year as we look at the organization, we want to grow each of these programs, and we want to introduce new ones. To Josh's point, anyone who has an idea or a passion for something or a recognition of a need in this community, we want to have this organization be a place that they can come and figure out a way to grow that and foster that. So we're really excited about what's going to happen at Reunion over the next 12 months. So. And with that in mind, in order to do that, we're going to need a little bit more space. So Josh is going to introduce that.
Yeah, so part of this, when we launched this organization, part of the idea here was to grow into a place where it is truly a community center, where we're having spaces for kids to come and do their homework. We're having spaces where we can provide daycare for the community. We have, sky's the limit. Like, what are the ideas out there? Do we have a gym where we're working out and the community's working out and just relationship is happening? Do we have dance classes? We have a bunch of dancers here. Do we have art classes? We have a bunch of artists here. Do we have music stuff that's happening? A bunch of musicians here. Like, what can we do? How can we bless this community? What can we offer? And I remember when I was first talking about this, my dream was, I was telling Todd Proctor, I was like, Todd, what we should do is we should get a whole bunch of rich people together in a room and pitch the vision and see if we can get a building. And he said, I got a better idea. How about you start doing it first without a building? Do everything you can do without a building, and then when you have a proof of concept, the money won't be a problem. And so that's where we started. All right, we've got a parking lot, West Side Nights. We've got a backyard. How about Reunion Youth? We've got, a coffee shop that we're blessed to be able to use. How about the Small Business Institute? We've done a lot of things without a building, and we're starting to get to a place where for Reunion HQ, as well as Canopy, we feel like we need a space. We feel like we need a place to call home. Like, we're so grateful to be here in this context, but we have very limited use of this space. And so we're looking to figure out a home in Westside Costa Mesa, both for Canopy, for our Sundays, for our events, that kind of stuff, but more significantly, to be that parish church, to be a place where Reunion HQ can thrive and be a true community center where people can come and experience the love of the Father as we celebrate with them, as we are in relationship with them, and as we try to find ways to empower this community. So with that in mind, we are launching, both for Reunion HQ and for Canopy, a building campaign that you might have heard about this last weekend that we're calling Lean In and Branch Out. So we have an amazing building search committee. We have a couple of members. If you're on the building search team, would you raise your hand up high just so we can identify you? I know some of you are going to come and talk tonight, but a few people in the team here tonight that have contributed to this campaign, who've made it a reality. So grateful for them. You're going to hear from some of them. But the real mastermind behind this and so many things at Canopy is, again, we're just playing ping pong here tonight, is Jeff Willis. Jeff, talk to us about the phases of the plan. See, we're just going back and forth. It's a thing. It's a bit we're doing.
Yeah, we're just going to keep trading back and forth. So, yeah, as we were, and all of this kind of stems from, as I'm sure any of you who are regular attendees of Canopy know, our space is somewhat limited from time to time. It's sometimes hard to find a seat. It's hard to park. So, we first started kind of dreaming about a space for our church, but again, like so many things, Reunion HQ is kind of integrally tied in. So we started dreaming about space altogether. So for about a year, we've been kind of looking at potential and ideas. And the first thing that our building team figured out is real estate's really expensive in Orange County. So, we are trying to figure out a way to get where we need to go and do it in kind of a sensible way. So this is the slide we showed on Sunday, and I know we went over it briefly, so we'll kind of get into some more detail tonight. But the ultimate goal is that by July 2025, which isn't too far away, we ultimately want to have $5 million to invest in a space for ourselves. We're not sure what that looks like yet. We're going to be relying a lot on the Spirit to kind of lead us in that direction. So we don't know if it's purchasing a building, a long-term lease, anything that that kind of gets us the home that we're looking for. And in order to get there, we've got a couple of phases first, just to kind of deal with kind of immediate needs and practical steps. So again, we'll go through these in a little bit more detail, but really quickly, phase one, the goal is to raise $50,000 by the end of this calendar year, and that's to make some much needed improvements here and invest in this space to just kind of make it a little more functional for us, and then to find an additional space that we can get out into that we can use for our supplemental programs, things like Seek First, the Reunion Youth Nights. It would just be great to have a space that doesn't require us to constantly be kind of working out schedules with with all of the other tenants here. So that's the goal of the first phase, is to get that initial investment, just kind of upgrade our basic needs here, and then find an additional space.
And it's really cool to see a church that has so many roots already developed and such a strong foundation, but it, at the same time, is also progressing so quickly. And so I think it's really cool just to be a part of this, and now to be able to welcome all of you guys into this search as well. So as Jeff said, phase one, 50,000 by December 2023, which is the end of this year. So you saw, and Rachel will talk about it a little bit later, we made shirts, we made stickers. That's just going to be the start of it, to really get things going, spread the word, and then try to really get the buy-in from the community to be really excited about this. So an immediate needs for the FCC facility: upgraded Wi-Fi network, additional seating, and additional parking. With all of those, they have a cost. The seats are great right now, they're comfy, but they're large. And we could find more seats that would be smaller. It would have a larger capacity in there. We could also adjust them so we could fill more people into our sanctuary during that time. And then parking as well. We need more parking around here. What that could look like is renting additional spots from neighboring churches, the school down the street. But once again, that's also going to come at a cost. And then additional space. That's going to be both for Seek First and Reunion Youth, and then office space for both Canopy and Reunion HQ. That's really exciting because some of us just this last weekend actually went around and looked at some spaces, and it was really cool to just envision what that could potentially look like. Really exciting to see where Canopy's going, where Reunion HQ is going. So once again, we're really going to need a full team effort, buy-in from everybody and the community to really get behind this amazing development that is going to turn into something really incredible. So just seeing the vision now, get excited about it, share it with everybody, and yeah, happy to be here and share this with you guys. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. Like Chris said, there's so much potential with an additional space that we can use and really invest in, and we're just kind of excited about the prospect of having that to add to the Sunday services that we have here. So knowing that we're going to have to, like I said, whatever space we find, we're going to have to invest and kind of make it a little bit of our own. In the phase 2 section, again, we're looking at $200,000 by July of next year, just so as we move into a space, we can kind of make it our own. And we've got Sean to help tell us a little bit more about that phase.
Hi everybody, I'm Sean, if I haven't met you guys yet. My wife and Stephanie and Ava and I have been coming here for a little over a year now. So obviously we're very excited about this as well, because it'd be a lot of fun to do more stuff like this on a regular basis and have a space where we can do something every single day of the week and not just Sundays. So as everyone's saying, phase 1 and phase 2 are kind of tied together. Phase 2 would be once we find that space that we can use in the interim until the ever exciting phase 3 kicks into gear, would be to put some money into this space to create so that we can all gather like we are now, but in a little bit more comfortable environment, and also hold events like Seek First at on a weekly basis without schedule issues. I know a lot of people are hosting in their own homes for certain events, which is fantastic, but to have a space where we can do that without worrying about other schedules is wonderful. Also, tables can be held there and so forth. So office space, large meeting space, and then other events outside of the community too that may not even be just church related. So maybe after school tutoring or something along those lines. So all the money would go towards those efforts until we get to the phase 3, which will take time once we get there, because we will have to invest into that space as well and go through all the various permitting and zoning stuff. So in the interim, this could be our space. And so we're looking forward to getting it going. And as Chris mentioned, we're already on the hunt, and there's good prospects out there. So prayers are needed for sure. This is a hard task to take on, but we have a lot of faith this is going to work out. It's going to be exciting to see everybody in a space like together soon. So,
Thanks so much, Sean. Yeah, and the nice thing about the kind of thing about phase 2 is kind of taking that space and make it our own is kind of the idea we have behind phase 3 as well. So phase 3 obviously is the big one where we're trying to raise $5 million in the next little over 18 months. And what we kind of envision there is a space. And the reason we talked about Reunion first is because we wanted to share with you guys the vision for our community development organization, because we see this as a home for both Reunion HQ and Canopy. So we're not just looking for a sanctuary that we can have church services in on Sunday. We're looking for a community building that everyone can rally around. So and I think all these parameters came from Josh, I think last year at the All In Night, but we're looking for really easy to achieve, plenty of parking, 10,000 square feet, for an affordable price here in Westside Costa Mesa specifically. But it's no problem. I'm sure we can get one, anytime. But what we're really looking at is, we're looking at a bigger sanctuary. With the growth Canopy has experienced in the last couple of years, we anticipate, or hope for additional growth, and we want to kind of be planning for that. We want to have a space that isn't just a sanctuary, but also has multiple smaller meeting rooms and a way we can configure it for additional community events. We, of course, want office space for both Canopy and Reunion HQ, and then a flex space to kind of adapt to the needs of the community. So, we're at this point, everything is a bit aspirational, but on the next slide we kind of have this idea of we want a dedicated building or a space where we can have offices and a sanctuary and a community meeting place where we can build out and customize this thing. And the idea behind that, kind of as Josh shared, is like if someone was passionate about starting a restaurant, it would be great to have a space where we could have a pop-up restaurant and host them. Yeah. Or if someone was passionate about a gym, it could be a gym or a tutoring center. The idea being that, again, we obviously have the sanctuary and the offices to kind of take care of our, administrative needs and our Sunday services, but then it's also very much a communal organization and a building that we can then, lease out to partners, we can invite other people into, and it can be a space that people in Westside can come to and gather. Again, the dream would be obviously like a building or a small campus of our own that people it becomes a destination for people in this community. No matter what it is, they know they can come to Reunion HQ or Canopy, they can show up and they have a space that they can call home. They have a space that will invest in them and care for them, and that's kind of why we are, again, aspiring to have this space of our own. Not because, the space we have here is great and everything, but how great would it be if Reunion and Canopy were a destination that the community could show up to? So that's the phases kind of in a nutshell, and again, why we're trying to get to where we are. Again, this is kind of the campaign as an overview, and we're basically going to spend the next 18 months, a little over 18 months, really, really pushing to, see where the Spirit moves us in this area. I think that there's so much that Reunion and Canopy, can do and is inspired to do, and we're just excited to see where God's going to lead in this, and we're hoping to kind of meet these markers throughout the, as we go, and yeah, we're all just really excited about, this kind of tangible plan for a dream we've had for a really long time. So one of the things we're going to do to get there, again, we'll talk a little more about it, but obviously fundraising is going to come in a lot of different forms. So can we get Rachel up to talk, about the merch again?
Hi everyone. Okay. There's going to be a couple parts to the fundraising aspect of this. One of which would kind of be a monthly giving aspect that I am not talking about, Josh is going to talk about, and the other part would be just traditional fundraising, right? So we're starting off really small with some of the ideas that we have. We obviously have a lot. I don't know if you guys saw 5 million and like shuddered in your boots, but I know I did. And my first question is, how are we going to get there? And it's going to take all of us. It's going to take a village and then some, and fundraising is part of it. And so we're going to try to get creative with what that looks like. First and foremost, we already have ordered and they're coming shirts that are this cool swanky design that have our little lean in branch out logo on them, and then stickers as well. So just two very simple things that directly when you purchase either one of these things, hopefully both, hopefully multiple for friends and family and things like that, all of it will go towards the building campaign. So a really easy way to be able to lean in to the campaign. See why we called it that? I know, right? And then obviously, this isn't going to come by just selling shirts and stickers. We have a lot of other ideas of what fundraising could potentially look like. So we have already some other ideas of merch that we want to make. Things like people have mentioned coffee mugs, people have mentioned sweatshirts. If you have any other ideas of like, I would really love a lean in, branch out, insert this, let us know. And maybe that's something that we're able to kind of release as part of our fundraising efforts. We've talked about like limited edition merchandise, maybe things like around the holidays or something like that. This could be like maybe great gift ideas to be able to get friends and family because you're giving back to something and giving someone an awesome gift. But then the other thing that we've talked about is things like events. And again, open to any and all ideas that you guys have here. We've talked about like a benefit concert, a gala of some sort, just some kind of good old-fashioned fundraising event that we can generate a lot of traffic to, maybe outside of our community here, and additional donations to the campaign, and then partnerships as well. And that could look like a lot of different things. Maybe we're doing a silent auction and you know someone who owns a shop that's willing to donate a gift card to that shop or something like that. Really just any and all partnerships that you can think of. If that's anyone in commercial real estate, we want to know them. If it's just any type of partnership. But we have a long way to go, and I think maybe one thing that I will add to this list, just because it doesn't all need to be monetary, is prayer. I know that's like such a typical like, oh yeah, you need prayer when you're fundraising for something in the church, but it's actually true, and I'll tell you why. I had a few conversations with commercial brokers this week on some spaces that we were looking at, and quite frankly, they all thought we were insane. Which I'm like, cool, then we're on the right track. And that means we're going to need the Holy Spirit. If everyone else thinks we're insane, then we're going to need the Holy Spirit, right? And so like, no joke, if you're like driving around and you happen to be bored or something, maybe just start praying as you're driving these streets. Or if you're even just driving into church, start praying even while you're here in this building. Because it is not only going to take a huge amount of fundraising efforts, but it's going to take a lot of prayer and a lot of guidance from the Holy Spirit to get these landlords, these brokers, get all the funding and everything to align to get us a space. So yeah, that's it for me.
Thanks, Rachel. And yeah, just to kind of, add just one last little piece of that. I mean, everything you saw there, in terms of the merch, the special events, things like that, all of them are designed intentionally to be communal. Like we don't just want to have a fundraiser where we're just trying to like hit a dollar amount for the sake of hitting a dollar amount or get a building for getting a building. We want to invite the community into it. So a lot of the things we're doing for fundraising is specifically designed to invite the community in, where we can share the story, share the dream for this space, and hopefully get buy-in from the community as well, where we can really get people invested in the idea of having a space in their community that can accomplish these things. So we're really excited about, again, fundraising is always difficult and it's no one's favorite thing to do, but we're really hoping to make it an exciting time by making it something that is something that everyone can participate in, and not just us just constantly asking for money, but us inviting the community to step in and invest the way that we want to, the way that we're kind of dreaming for the community. So with that in mind, Josh is going to talk a little bit about the finances.
All right, so we're almost done, I promise, guys. Just a few more minutes. First thing before I talk money is this is really exciting for me personally. Like, this is stuff that I've been dreaming about and praying about for a while, and to have people that I didn't even know like 2 months ago, or a couple of years ago, coming up and like owning this and doing this together as a family is really exciting. And I just want to say that like this is the invitation. Like, this is the ground floor, people. Like, this is as ground floor as it gets. Like, do you want in? This is for all of us to dream. This is for all of us. I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about prayer. I'm talking about attention. I'm talking about ideas. I'm talking about just whatever God is putting on your heart. Like, you have a chance to be a part of this. And this thing, I'm telling you, the Holy Spirit is in this, and it is going to transform the landscape of this neighborhood. Many people will come to know Him and His love through this opportunity, through this organization, and we get to be a part of it. There's going to be a day in the not too distant future where we look back on this night on September 28th of 2023 and say, I was there when it all started. Yeah. And it's going to be good, guys. I'm really excited. And that means a bunch of stuff. I'm going to talk about money here because it certainly means money, but this is not the extent of it, okay? This is just one of those things that's easy to put on a screen because there's like concrete stuff that we can aim for together. So I'm going to talk money, not just Reunion HQ money, but Canopy money, because at the moment, for the most part, we have a couple of organizations that invest generously in our nonprofit, Rock Harbor being one of them, so grateful. But for the most part, Canopy is funding Reunion HQ through its first fruits. So I just want to talk to you about the Canopy budget really quickly, okay? In 2022, last year, we projected a budget of $546,000, which sounds like a lot. I'll tell you where we spend all this in a little bit. This year, we, with the oversight team, created a budget that was a projected budget of $687,000, okay? So this is a 26% growth in budget. The reason for this is really simple, and it'll become clear as I talk about what we do with our money, okay? When you look at our budgeting, we spend about 41.5% of our budget on staff. This might seem like a lot to you. This is actually not very much. The average church spends about 50 to 60% of their budget on staffing. We're around 41%. It's pretty lean. We have an amazing staff. We're able to accomplish a lot with the team that we have. But the truth is, we, as many of you know, are trying to hire somebody to help us with our operations. We're kind of looking for a director for Reunion HQ because we do need more staff in order to both launch this nonprofit into what it needs to be, but also to continue to care for the church, right? That's something that we want to do well. We're talking about growth. We don't want to grow for the sake of growth, and we don't want to lose what makes this place special. And we want to be able to care for people really well and see people really well and know people in this community, and that requires intentionality. It doesn't just require a staff, but it also requires a staff. So part of the growth in this budget is to enable us to grow our staff a little bit. You'll see that about 20% of it goes toward operations. That includes the rent for this building. That includes the storage containers we have on the parking lot. That includes our off-site storage. It includes liability insurance and workers' comp and all of the fun things that go into operations, equipment that we purchase, all those things. We have about 11.5% for our ministries. So that kind of all of the different ministries that we run, whether it's tables or worship or kids or Sunday mornings, that all comes out of this. So supplies, anything that happens in those areas. And then finally, this is the biggie for us, first fruits. 27% of whatever comes into the church goes out through our first fruits ministry. In other words, this does not get spent on Canopy. That's our rule. It doesn't get spent on salaries. It doesn't get spent on our events. It goes out of this church. And it goes out in really three specific ways. One, we have some strategic partners that we invest in, missional partners around the world, in Africa, in India, here in Costa Mesa, kind of all over the place. Two is benevolence. So when people in our community or that our community is aware of have needs, can't pay rent or need to get counseling or therapy or whatever else, we have that funds available. And then 2/3 of this 27%, so what's that come to? Like roughly 18%, goes to Reunion HQ. So Reunion HQ's budget this year, if we hit our numbers, is projected to be about $200,000. Canopy's providing about $160,000 of that out of our first fruits. And we have a commitment as a church to continue until God tells us to stop or we're no longer able to do so, to increase this number. If you say why 27%, it's because 2 years ago it was 25%, and we want to increase it by 1% every year until we can no longer do so or until God tells us that's enough. So this number is really, really significant because it enables all the stuff that we're talking about through Union HQ. At the moment, this budget that we're shooting for is being made up of about 41% of the adults who call Canopy home. Now these numbers it's hard to track, right? It's hard to track how many people actually call Canopy home, but our best guess is about 40% of the adults who call Canopy home currently give, and that's incredible, okay? I know it might not seem like a lot, but in the church context, that is well above average. Most churches would be happy with 25 to 30%. We have about 40%. That's awesome. However, I don't want to simply be an above average church, okay? We want to, the dream here is 100% of people are investing something into this community. If we can go to the next slide. So here's the ask for this upcoming year. In order to enable us to do all of the things, Reunion HQ, First Fruits, continue to grow this family well, all the things, we want everyone who calls this community home to participate in regular generous giving. This is just part of life in the kingdom. It's just, we talked about how radical generosity, breathtaking generosity, is the norm among the people of God. This does not only mean giving to a church, but it certainly does mean giving to a church. If you're a part of a family, if you're a part of a body, you invest in that body. That's how the body works. If you don't, who knows what's going on there. But the body is only as capable as the people in the church are generous. So our church is only as capable as the generosity of the church. That's just true. With that, we're asking that everyone will contribute to the New Building campaign. Now, this is different because we have, as I've just talked about, we have our Canopy sort of operational budget First fruits comes out of all of that, the $687,000. Now we're talking about 50,000 and 200,000 and 5 million. This is above and beyond that. I know it's a big ask, but we're asking for people to continue tithing, not to pick one or the other, but to continue their investment in the church, the day-to-day of the church, and also to help us build toward the future. These are the dreams and the asks. I'm just putting it out there. Take it and do what you want with it. Pray about it. Put it before the Lord. Ask what He's doing. Ask what He's asking you to do. When it comes to Canopy, regular giving, we're in order to hit our budget numbers, we're asking that all of our regular givers consider increasing their giving by 10%. This is not 10% of their income, but 10% of what they're currently giving. In other words, if a regular giver is giving $100, we're asking, would you consider going to $110? If you're giving $1,000, we're asking, would you consider going to $1,100? Just increase by 10%, which would enable us to make up some of that projection that we're shooting for in order to help grow our community and fund our nonprofit. And then we're hoping to achieve a 10% growth in regular givers. So if we currently have 41% of our church giving, we would love by this time next year to have 51% of our church giving. And that amounts to roughly 20 people, 20 adults that are stepping into new regular giving. So it might seem like a lot, but at the end of the day, these are not massive asks. These are just incrementally more investment, incrementally more generosity that enables a lot of cool stuff to happen. Last slide on this. The why, as I've said already, is to increase our capacity to care for this community well, to increase our first fruits giving and impact, and then to learn to live free. That's the thing with all of this, is God has been so generous with giving us a gift of generosity, because the gift of generosity is the primary way we break the power of money and anxiety and fear in our lives. When we're radically generous, when we recognize where the stuff comes from, and that we're just giving back to God what He's so generously given to us, and only giving a portion. He's letting us keep most of it. Giving just a fraction of what He's given us back to Him, it breaks the power of money. It in crazy ways. You think that giving away money is going to make you more dependent on money. It actually makes you less. Because you realize when you give it away and you're still standing the next day, you're still alive, you've still eaten, that God has provided, and He's good, and He's going to take care of you. And so this is one of the primary ways, in a culture that's dominated by money, this is one of the primary ways that we can learn to live free. It's just through radical, breathtaking generosity. So the changes I said on the last slide would result in a roughly $138,000 increase, which is, give or take, the projection, the 26% projection increase that we're looking for. And again, the cool part about all of this is it does all of this. God is so cool. He's so amazing in giving us this gift, because it does in fact increase the capacity to care for and steward what's happening here. It does in fact increase the impact beyond the walls of this place, and it does in fact set us free. It's really, really a cool opportunity. I know it sounds like I'm trying to sell you on something. I hope it doesn't feel like that, because it's real. I've experienced it in my own life. And all of the stuff we talked about, there's so much more that could be said. We don't have time to say. If you want to talk about any of this, I'm around, Jeff's around, Adrian's around, Kiana would love to chat with you. Anybody, any of the Building Search Committee people would love to hang with you and talk through all of this stuff. Last thing we're going to talk about, real quick. This is now, let's kind of travel beyond the boundaries of Westside Costa Mesa and Canopy, all the way around the world to the Holy Land. Where we took a team last year, had a group of people who were in the Holy Land to experience what I call a peacemaking pilgrimage, which is an opportunity to go and have conversations, not only to walk where Jesus walked, but to have conversations that I imagine Jesus would have had if He were there today. So many Christians go to the Holy Land with this idea of, I want to see what Jesus did. They look into the past. And the thing about Jesus is when He was there, He was very present. He was very in the moment with people. And so when we go to the Holy Land, we don't simply want to look into the past and ask, what did Jesus do? We want to look into the present and say, what would He do if He were here today? Who would He talk to? So many Christians kind of treat it like this Christian Disneyland, taking pictures of rocks. Literally, taking pictures of rocks. I had a travel agent tell me, when you go over there, make sure that you take a picture of the sign first before you take a picture of the rock, so you remember what pile of rocks you're looking at. And I thought, he's like, seriously? We're talking about piles of rocks. Interesting. I mean, Jesus may have touched that rock. Okay. But I guarantee if He were here today, Jesus would have touched that person. Jesus would have talked to this person. He would have learned what life was like for them on the other side of the wall. He would have cared about their sufferings, their struggles, their day-to-day. And so this trip is both of those things. It's an opportunity to see where Jesus walked and have conversations about what happened 2,000 years ago. But it's also an opportunity to have conversations about what it might mean to be the body of Christ in one of the most difficult contexts in the world today. And it goes so far beyond that. It's not just about that moment. It spills into the rest of our lives. As a matter of fact, I'm going to bring up our associate pastor, Kiana, because when we were in the Holy Land this last time, she had this line that I want her to share with you, among other things, about this particular trip. So, Kiana, the line was...
Pressure's on. The line was, I was sitting there above the old city of Jerusalem and staring at it. And I was like, I think that this trip needs to be required discipleship for not only every person at Canopy, but every American Christian. One thing that I loved that we heard a lot when we were there was, like what Josh said, a lot of people come and, guys, the holy sites are amazing. Like, you're sitting on the Sea of Galilee and you're like, it all happened right here. You know, you're seeing the cliff where the pigs that were demon-possessed fell off. You know, like you're seeing where Jesus was, and it's amazing, you know, and we get to go to the garden tomb, and it's truly beautiful, and it makes the word of God come to life. But what I love was when people talk about, oh, people just come and, you know, look at the rocks that Jesus was by or whatever. But a lot of people talk about it as, well, we're getting to talk to the living stones on this trip. The people who live there in this massive conflict that's so complicated. Like, when I got home from this trip, I made Ben and my parents sit through like a 3-hour slideshow of me telling them all about this, starting in 1948 all the way up till now. And it was just, if you went on this trip, you know what I'm talking about. Like, it was so incredible. And we got to sit with so many people. We got to sit with Israelis. We got to sit at dinner one night with a few Orthodox Jews. And I got to talk to Raphael, a guy who were at his table, and I just straight up asked him, well, what do you think about Jesus? And he said, I don't think he was the Messiah, because the Messiah was supposed to come back and fix everything. And everything's not fixed. And it was just this moment where, I mean, it was heartbreaking, but I got to then share with him a couple parables about the wheat and the weeds. And we got to have this conversation with an Orthodox Jew in the Holy Lands about Jesus. And then we were sitting in a Palestinian Christian's home. He actually has this olive tree farm, and it's called the Tent of Nations, and they run all sorts of amazing ministries and things out of there now. But he's just dealt with, I don't know why I keep looking at the screen as if I have notes. It's just beautiful. But he's dealt with so much oppression from the Israeli government, and he is truly living out. When we got out of the bus, we were about to get out of the bus to go to this man Zahoud's home, and Josh said to me, get ready to meet what did you say? Get ready to meet the first real Christian you'll ever meet. Like, this guy is living out peacemaking like I've never seen before. I mean, his family is being oppressed. His resources have been completely cut off. His family is getting beaten by Israeli military on a regular basis, and yet he looked at the life of Jesus, opened the Beatitudes, and said, okay, how do I live like this? And it was just, I could talk for like 1,000 years on this trip. All I can say is talk to me, talk to Josh, talk to anyone, Whitney, Shayla, Nick, whoever, Serene, like whoever's been here. I mean, it is so worth going, and it will truly transform your faith and your life. And what's really cool is leading up to it. This first meeting is going to be an interest meeting. But leading up to it, we have a bunch of monthly meetings leading up to the trip, and we go through a book together that's kind of this like unbiased historical view on the whole Israeli-Palestinian conflict, you know, and how it all started. And so you really learn a lot and you get educated. And so you don't go in kind of just blind. But yeah, I mean, it's freaking awesome. So you should come to this meeting. If anything, it'll be a good time, and there'll be snacks and probably LaCroix. Spindrift is better. And mango flavor. Anyways, I can't say it strongly enough. If you're going to put your resources into, put your resources into the building campaign and Reunion HQ. But, and this.
Guys, you're gonna need a lot of money this next year.
Sorry, Josh is coming up. I'm guessing he wants me to stop talking. I'm just going to keep backing up.
Give it up for Kiana, everyone.
Fun fact, no one submitted any cues, so for us to A, so like we don't have it right now. But you know, as we were talking tonight, the one thing I really kind of felt convicted of is I feel like this is something that really needs to be prayed about. So rather than doing a Q&A tonight and making you all stay even longer, would you take some time to pray about it? We will send out a link to the Q&A question form again in our weekly email, and we'll also mention it at church on Sunday. So you'll have an opportunity to submit it, but will you please just take the next couple of days and just pray through everything you've heard tonight and really kind of think about if you have any questions about anything that was discussed today. In the meantime, if you are feeling convicted to give to the building fund right away, this is a QR code to give directly to the building fund. Here's a QR code to order merch. That is the Holy Land interest list in the lower right, and then the connected card up in the top right is our general just kind of interest list if you want to send in any questions, concerns, or sign up for anything. So we'll leave this up for a few minutes just in case you guys want to sign up for anything or connect in any of those ways tonight, but we will do the Q&A at a later date. This was not meant to be the only conversation we have about the building and Reunion HQ, so we'll schedule another time to kind of go over specific questions if you guys would just be praying about it and kind of think through you know, anything that you're feeling called to.
Thanks everybody for being here. I want to remind you we are wrapping up our Vision series this Sunday at Canopy with a conversation around Covered, led by our very own Kiana Maxon. You're not going to want to miss that. And then we'll be having Thursday night here. We'll be having our last Vision night, tacos, prayer and worship, learning what it means to be led by the Spirit and what that looks like here at Canopy. So, love you all. See you soon.